We're back on the special election edition of Crown City News. Now to the PUSD Seat 6 race. It's taken a bit of a nasty turn, with the local papers digging up some trouble challenger Sean Baggett has had with the law. We'll talk with Sean Baggett in a few moments, but we'll start with incumbent Tom Selinske. Thanks for being here, Tom.
My pleasure, Sehnita.
So there has been a lot that's come up on your challenger's end. Was that something that your campaign dug up? Is that you provided to the paper? How did that happen?
It was really shocking. I had heard some rumors, and then right before the papers printed the facts about Sean and his past, I had seen an email from a parent who had done some investigation. So it was really shocking.
Okay. Now, is that something that you had looked into when you started this election? You know, looking at your challengers, what is their background?
That's something that never crossed my mind.
Okay.
I take people at straightforward and good faith, and that they're going to have integrity, and we move forward.
What do you think about this information coming out now versus, you know, with the March 8th election? What if, you know, at that point he had won? What would you have been concerned? What is your thoughts on that as to why it's coming out now?
I'm not sure what the protocols would be. I think the one concern was raised that if these facts are accurate, then you know, it's questionable whether he would be allowed on a school campus with some of the charges that were levied. So,
okay. Well, now he also has some claims that he's making on your end as well. He's said that, as you know, while you've been on the school board, that you've given contracts out to some of your supporters. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's totally inaccurate. Basically, the facts of the situation were, and the claims were, that I had a campaign manager that got a contract, and in no way was this person ever a campaign manager. She was certainly just a volunteer. And what's interesting was I was being extra cautious and extra sensitive. I even recused myself for first consideration of the contract to check and see if I needed to recuse myself. And after talking to legal counsel, I found out that I didn't, as long as I disclosed the relationship, and I did. And what was interesting, reported in the paper, one of my fellow board members even claimed that it was inappropriate, but he even voted for the contract as well. So it seemed a little strange. Seemed a little strange.
Now, what about coming up? I mean, if there are conflicts of interest, are you fine recusing yourself?
Oh, certainly, certainly.
Okay.
No, I've always thought carefully about my role on the board and want to make sure that it's transparent and people understand what I think and how I think, and want to make sure that if I do have any relationship with a vendor or anyone else, that it's disclosed and appropriately handled.
Okay. Now we're going to check in with Dean Lee from the Mountain Views News here as well with us. What do you think as far as some of the background with Sean Baggett?
Well, I mean, you know, all of it's coming from the Pasadena Weekly, all of it. And so I think that the newspaper has a responsibility to be somewhat accurate, and I think that the claims that he wouldn't be able to step on a campus are a little bit, they're trying to dig up something that really, I mean, they don't fingerprint everyone that walks on a campus, and I know that just from covering events and things like this. So whether or not he would or would not be able to be on campuses, I think that, you know, that you just said it, it would have to be seen, but I don't think that's like the big sticking point here. I think it's having a criminal background and trying to be the leader in public education. It's not, can you come on a campus or not? You know, I would like to see some of these issues that are serious be talked about. I mean, Diaz, the superintendent, is leaving. You know, we have no idea what the federal government's now, you know, they adverted the shutdown, but we're going to see all kinds of massive cuts, and one of those is maybe more teachers laid off. So that person that's going to be, I'd like to see the candidates discussing some of that, you know, some of the stuff that's going on.
Sure.
Yeah, and in fact, you know, some are saying out there that, you know, PUSD spends more per pupil on their students. Their teacher salaries are really low. So where is all the money going? You know,
I think you have to look at all the data, and I think that would be the point. If you look at our what's called our base revenue limit of what goes to every student, we're actually funded lower, and some of the things that people don't realize about our funding is it even goes back to Prop 13. Our leaders in this community were more conservative in taxing our community and assessing ourselves when Prop 13 was passed in 1978, and we're locked in at a lower rate compared to San Marino and surrounding districts. So a lot of people need to dig into the facts about what's going on. Because of our kids having high needs, we do get extra funding to help them get the school lunches. And of course, we have a great large population of special needs students that get extra funding for those needs.
So what are you doing, or what is the council doing to bring, more diversity back with the families, maybe, more wealthier families that have kind of taken flight? What are you doing to reach out to those families to keep them in PUSD?
Well, I think the variety of things. We have to perform for all our students. I think that's a key principle that we have to focus on. And so that's where I've focused my attention on working to improve student achievement, even when we've had budget reductions. I mean, you still look at our API score over the last 4 years, and we've grown 52 points, even while we reduced over $30 million in revenue from state budget cuts. In terms of outreach, I think we need to do, we are expanding programs such as our dual immersion programs at San Rafael and at Burbank with the dual immersion with Spanish and English Mandarin. And so those kinds of programs are attracting parents back to the school district, as well as our career and multiple pathways at our high school and middle school programs. So there's a lot going on to improve student results and student achievement. In fact, I just got information on Friday about our dropout rate. And as you may know,
that's what I was going to ask you about.
I helped lead the charge to help create this dropout task force that focused on bringing community members and organizations together to focus on that. We were successful in getting a federal grant that is ramping up now, and even before that federal grant is being fully implemented, we've been able to reduce our dropout rate that's going to be reported to the state in the very near future down to just very close to 12%, which is a significant decrease. It's about cutting our dropout rate in half. So it is significant. I think the community needs to know that we're doing everything we can to improve our attendance, to make sure we know where the students are and keep them in school and help them be ultimately successful. I think that's the key part.
What were your comments on that? What are your thoughts on that?
The only thing, I mean, this is kind of off the wall, and so it's, it's coming out from left field, but I wanted to know how serious the idea of Altadena breaking off from the PUSD is, and the next, being a board member, I don't see the board really talking about that. I mean, obviously Altadena residents are talking about it on, all the time. Is this a serious option, and what is the board doing, or as the, if you're reelected, how will you handle this issue?
Sure. Well, I think, Dean, you may be aware, we had a presentation from the county staff that is kind of in charge of managing the requests for new school districts. And they came to the board and explained the process. And, I think for many Altadena residents, it's a serious issue. They're concerned about student success, as we are. And so my understanding is that the county found that there weren't enough signatures for their petition to go forward. And so at this time, I'm not clear what the leaders of the Altadena movement are working on. I would assume they may continue their efforts. I think for me, it's we don't have anything to respond to until we have a valid petition, and even then, it actually goes through a process that includes the county, the State Board of Education, and my understanding that it could be a 2 to 3 year process with all the protocols that would be involved for creating a new district. So we don't have necessarily anything to consider, so that's why you haven't heard us talking about that. I think for us, the focus has to be on student achievement and what we're doing to support our students to help them be successful through career and college.
Right. I'm just wondering, the reason I brought up the Altadena situation is because it's kind of an odd, it's odd in a way where if you actually made the PUSD district smaller, you could have more focus on Pasadena, or then it would be just Pasadena and Sierra Madre, and there would be this issue of because there were school closures talked about and all this kind of stuff. If you made the district smaller, then all of a sudden maybe you wouldn't have to close schools, or maybe if the county, I can't imagine that anybody would want to be take on the creation of a new school district, but it's just to me it's interesting, I should say.
It makes sense. It makes sense that smaller could be more effective. The thing that I've learned in studying this issue is that a lot of students that live in Altadena actually go to Pasadena, geographic map Pasadena schools.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of students that don't necessarily go to their neighborhood school. There's a lot of migration across the district. And so that creates some complexity, if you think about that. And then, the thinking about, what is it, how do we get more resources to students is my ultimate goal. How can we increase that funding and resources in the classroom? And to me, it's not clear if you create another district if you actually would do that, would accomplish that, because you'd have to duplicate some administrative structure and some kind of focus around operating a new district. So it's not clear. It's not clear. There's a lot of issues.
Okay. Well, I know that you need to leave, but before you go, really like to hear a little bit more about the superintendent selection process.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, we've identified a national search firm, Ray & Associates, that have been brought on board, and they're in the process of outlining the process itself. They've gotten feedback from many of the board members, and are continuing to do that for our priorities of a superintendent search. And then we're designing the process with them to do the outreach for the community, to make sure that we have input similar to what we did when Superintendent Diaz arrived. That's my value, and that's what I sense being reflected in the search process. The process is such that we, as you may know about Superintendent Diaz, he wasn't necessarily looking to move to Pasadena. We're looking for a candidate that's successful in where they're at, maybe not thinking of moving necessarily, but want to, the search firm's role is to go and approach those superintendents where they sense a good fit for what Pasadena needs, where we want to go, and their skill set.
Okay. Well, I hope as you get more information on the process, candidates, that you will be back with us for getting all that information out there.
Love to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tom.
Oh, my pleasure.
Good luck next week.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Dean.
So, Dean, what do you think about, as far as PUSD race in this seat, what do you think about the two candidates?
Well, I think that, like I said, they need to focus on the issues. And one of the things about selecting the new superintendent is Diaz himself brought in a whole bunch of people to surround him. So he brought in like other, people to work. And those, as Diaz made his announcement, they're starting to make announcements of leaving. Like my example would be Benty Harvey, who was the public relations person for the PUSD. He's the one that brought her in, and now she's leaving as well. And so I'm wondering if it's Diaz leaves, you have this mass exodus of people around him, which creates, no leadership at the top. So obviously the candidate that comes in is going to have to figure out, maybe the superintendent, that's his responsibility, and they will build sort of a group of people around who they hire. But it definitely, one of the strengths of PUSD was bringing Diaz in. I mean, I saw, from before Diaz to having him there, a dramatic shift in just the whole philosophy of how the district was run. So,
well, hopefully they'll be able to continue that, but we'll see as we follow up the search process and who they bring in.
Right.